Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I am just starting the recording here. I think everything's working. Actually had a student from my other class just call me on the phone here, so I had to talk to him for a minute before I jumped into this. Okay. All right, folks. First thing, obviously, is do we have any general questions to go over at this point? If so, what are they?
Are you receiving the email from the SNHU email?
I should be, yes. Sometimes I do get them in spam. If you send from an outside email source, oftentimes I do not get them because SNHU grabs them and treats them all as spam.
Um, I sent you several, but I haven't had a reply back.
Okay, when did you send them?
I sent a reply back to your email on Thursday, and I replied back, well, on Friday, and I
Okay,
replied
okay.
back to you this weekend, and I know you had other issues going on, and I
Right, and
did follow back up again last night.
right, and I just got those cleared up right now, so today. So that's why I've been slow. I'm still catching up, and with a couple of classes, I had multiple that I had to catch up on. So I will be all caught up on those by tomorrow. And there is no, like I said, I suspended the deadlines. There are no deadlines for this past week
Mm-hmm.
because of the issues that I had. So that if something was not put in, it's not a problem. And if it was put in and it wasn't up to standards because I couldn't answer a question, then that's not a problem either. We can just extend it and resubmit it. Because yeah, because like I said,
Okay.
I've been without ability to get in to the system here because of the situation that I was having to deal with over the last since late Thursday.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, any other questions? And I do apologize for that, folks. I was dealing with a serious family issue for a couple of days there, and I did send out a post on that. Okay. Any any other questions?
Gary, this is Melody Thomas. I posted a question in the chat,
Okay, now I can
and
see it. Yes, it just popped up. Okay, so I never had to do a blueprint before. Okay, so that's a. Let me just go. It looks like I got a couple that all came in at once here. But let me read them all, just so I can understand where everybody's at. So give me a second here. Let's see. How many students do we still have in this class? As far as I know, nobody has withdrawn. We still have the same number. I think it's probably you don't see a lot of postings because they're optional. A lot of people, if they don't have uh, a question, they probably don't show up in the discussion board. All right. So how am I still a lot of static?
No.
Okay. So now we're getting down
no,
to
it's much better.
okay. Now, so how to approach blueprinting the assignment. Okay. So what we're really looking for with the blueprinting the assignment is there's no formal approach. The idea is for you to think through what it is you're going to do before you do it. Because sitting down to just write code from scratch never works. I've been programming for probably 30 years, and I can't sit down and do that unless it's something really simple. So what we want to do is we always want to think about how the code needs to be put together. So what do I mean? Let's kind of come up with an example here real quick. Um, let me say, now let me see if I can get my desktop to share here real quick. Okay, so can you see the screen that says has my any meeting on it now? Okay, so I'm seeing some interesting questions about the project, and so let's do this. I am actually going to let me say I'm going to bring up. I've already actually got a. This is actually a lecture I'm writing for another class that I'm writing, so I'm just going to close that out for a minute. And I want to do this. All right. Now I'll see if it's going to let me write on my there. Okay. So if I'm starting to do a blueprint on something, and I apologize because looks like I'm not going to be able to see you folks at the same time. Well, maybe I can adjust this so I can see the chat. Okay. So let's say I'm going to create a program that is going to track the people coming into a pet shop. So we're going to a pet grooming parlor. So we're going to have people bring in their dogs. We'll say we'll keep it simple with dogs, and we need to track what we do with the dogs, and we have to track the customers and so on and so forth. So if I'm going to blueprint a program like that, really what I'm doing is I'm thinking about the structure of the thing. All right. So one of the first things I'm going to think about is what are the objects that are going to go in to this particular blueprint. So does anybody have any ideas what type of objects we're going to be talking about using object-oriented program? Does somebody want to throw one out? Employee. That's right. So we're going to have employees. We'll have an employee class. Sure, we'll have a time clock class. We may have like an inventory class, right? We may have what else? A pet class. Oh yeah, customer class. That's a good one. Without customers, we're going to go out of business real quick. Customer class. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. These are probably the main ones, and we don't want to get too detailed right now because we only have a limited amount of time in which to talk. Okay, so what I've done here is I've actually started blueprinting without doing anything really fancy, right? Okay, so what I can do from there is this is kind of a top-down approach. And typically when we develop software, we do it from a top-down method, which means we look at the really big picture and we figure out what's in the really big picture. And then from that, we start to refine the big picture into more details. Okay, I could sit in Visio and I could make up all these classes in Visio, but for time's sake, we're just going to leave them, just as lists in Word. Okay, so then what I can do is I can start thinking, okay, how do these things all hook together? And what are the properties and methods that I might need in these? So for example, in employee class, I want to have some obvious things, and I'm not going to make it pretty here. Really, it's just to illustrate. So some properties. Properties. We'll keep it really, really simple. Obviously, there's going to be more than I'm going to put here, like first name, last name. And we could put a bunch of things like date of birth and all that. Okay, what do you mean with pet or customer for this project? Yeah, so employee ID, yeah. And we could put a bunch more, right? So those are properties of the employee class. Those are attributes that the employee has. Okay, yeah, those were an example. Okay, so this may have some methods, and let's say we could say have something like insert employee. We could say pair with client, and I haven't put any input parameters for these. Okay. So, and then we could have a bunch of others in here for that. But here's a couple of examples. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a top-down approach, and I'm starting to think about, okay, what is this employee class going to do? What types of information are it going to take in? Okay, and I can do the same thing for time clock class as well. I could say properties. And I could say employee ID's got to come in because we have to know who it is that's clocking in. So say clock in. It's like in date, in time, out, date, out, time. Because I guess it's theoretically possible for somebody to clock in on one day and clock out on the next if they have an overnight shift. Probably not too popular at a pet store. Okay, but it gives you the idea. So we could probably have a method like clock in, clock out, and then we'll just leave it at that. Clock in, clock out. Okay. So inventory. We could come up with a few things for this as well. And again, I'm going to keep it incredibly simple here because we do have a time constraint, but I want to get you pointed in the right direction. So property for this might be the item description, item quantity. It might be something like item cost, and we'll just leave it at that. Okay, keep it simple. And maybe we have some methods. Insert item query stock on hand, and I'll just leave it at 2 for that. You guys, you can use your imaginations and come up with whatever you want. Okay. And we could continue on, and I could do these for all of these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave the other 2 to your imagination so that we can kind of discuss in a little more detail some of the other things that you might want to put into a blueprint, because my goal here is really for you to not come up with a particular methodology for doing this or showing me a particular type of diagram or particular type of document. I want you to show me that you thought through what you were doing before you started to write code. If you really get seriously into programming, then you'll take a course in systems analysis and probably one in systems engineering, and that's where all that stuff comes in. And it's not a skill that you're going to learn in the space of a programming class. Okay, so all right, so this is in general where we're going with this very simple program. Now, there's going to be some classes that you may not think about, okay? And these are going to be things that kind of reside behind the scenes, okay? Because all your data has to be stored somewhere, right? So we may have a database control class. Can you have an int value along with a name in an array list? Yes, you can if it's a multi-dimensional array. What I would probably be better to do is to create a container class that holds a bunch of objects. And so let's do that right now. Let's talk about a container class. Okay, that does come about in the course. I'm not sure if you've seen that term yet, but you will see it. And a good example of that would maybe be the customer class.